The Debacle at Durham, Part 2. What became of them? Cast your mind back to the frankly hysterical response to the P.G. Wodehouse broadcasts. You discover something surprising. There were in fact purely literary reasons that his work so greatly infuriated the great and the good of the time. I don't believe for a moment Churchill thought the broadcast posed a threat to national security. No, it was a succession of novels out of tune with the prevailing political zeitgeist. In this sense, Wodehouse was far more subversive than any number of more politically committed authors, and George Orwell at least was aware of this. Wodehouse created a version of reality which had no time for political posturing. Indeed, repeatedly we're brought face to face with the holiness of the heart's affections, a very uncomfortable truth in times of war. In the polarized world of the 1940s, more than enough, in the eyes of some, to declare him a subversive heretic. Can we find a parallel to this in Ransome, in the creator of Wildcat Island? I think the answer is yes. In his best work, and particularly in the Enchanted Lakes novels, you find something equally subversive. He gently reminds his reader of an England rooted in a far distant past, a mythical place which, while it never existed, we are more than content to inhabit. Indeed, as you will discover, I lived there myself for many of my childhood years. What is it, asks Margaret Drabble, apart from buttered eggs, marmalade, small boats and fair play, that gives Ransome's fiction its enduring power? Her answer comes close to the truth. The world entered each time one opens one of these well-read books, she claims, is not the real world. It's a land of myth, not of reality. Far from creating an Edwardian miniature in which children mimic the imperial concerns of their elders, Arthur Ransome described children without spite, children devoid of malice, children never cruel, mischievous perhaps, but never mean, never wicked. Little wonder the critics tempered their praise with unease. He seemed to have created a world without sin. Some years ago, trying to sum up his idyllic world, I fell back on a half-remembered quotation. He's made a world for us to live in and delight in. His characters are still in Eden. It was only later, when I chased the quotation down, I discovered the words were Evelyn Waugh's, and he was writing about P.G. Wodehouse. I owe it to you to say a little as to what became of the key characters in the sorry saga of Durham. In 1941, Bruce Lockhart had established himself in some style in the Foreign Office. He was, in fact, in the administrative hierarchy, the senior to Rex Leeper, but in practice he had less power. He thought Leeper, and I quote him, already overpaid, though I would be prepared to pay him more, as a pension. As for Leeper himself, he put to good use the privileges that came with his position of extraordinary power in charge of the political warfare executive. He established himself in Woburn Abbey in a style to rival Lockhart's. Each morning, when in residence, he dispatched his Rolls-Royce 4 miles down the road to fetch the milk. I'm not entirely sure, but I think Leeper's Rolls was the one he shared with Sir Campbell Stewart, who used it to shuttle between Woburn Estate and London. In any case, I'll leave you to look at this agreeable vehicle while we talk about Leeper's life. Although Woburn was Leeper's main centre of operations, his position allowed him to keep a house in Berkeley Square in London, and he hosted numerous house parties most weekends, entertaining, networking the great and the good of the wartime political world, including Gateskill and Attlee. It was not long before his lifestyle led his department to be known in Whitehall and even in Fleet Street as Leeper's Sleepers. One senior intelligence officer rather acidly described him as languid. But if you're tempted to see all this as harmless banter, after all, these men working long political hours may have deserved their occasional cake. Bear in mind that the officer concerned was named Kim Philby. In those desperate initial days of war, above all else, there was a need for intelligence. Philby was uncomfortably close to the great man, and we know now where much of that vital intelligence ended up. Incidentally, Guy Burgess was there by then working in Section D in the Foreign Office. Leeper was promoted sideways, as they say, in 1943, becoming ambassador to the Greek government in exile, where he supported the monarchist cause. His father had been Professor of Greek in Melbourne. From 1946 to 1948, he was British ambassador to Juan Perón's Argentina. Rex Leeper died peacefully in 1968 at the age of 80. One cannot say the same of either Willy Münzenberg or Karl Radek. Neither ended their days peacefully.